Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim along with KJ for the Real Sports Talk. You can hit us up on Twitter at CashKelly_TRST, and you can also like the Real Sports Talk on Facebook. And we are here now to give you our NBA playoff coverage. You guys know throughout the entire NBA playoffs last year, no one on the internet gave you better overall NBA coverage than this channel here. Some people have changed, but overall me and KJ remain constant, and we will continue to give you tremendous overall NBA coverage throughout this entire playoffs. We'll look to have some live shows maybe at some point in the playoffs, but to begin, we will give you a first-round preview of every single matchup. That's something you're not getting anywhere else. No team is going to break down every single matchup, every single series the way that we are going to do. And because there are some things still up in the air with the East, because there's still some games going on, we are going to begin in the West with a series that I actually view as the most interesting, with the four-seeded Los Angeles Clippers, who have gone from being one of the most dreadful franchises in sports to being one of the most watched and liked franchises this season, against the underdog Memphis Grizzlies, who were a game away from going to the Western Conference Finals last season. KJ, overall, what do you think about this series?
Alright, what I take out of this series is that if you look at all the guys that were on the Memphis team last year, they're all back. And they had Rudy Gay this year. They didn't have him last year due to a shoulder, something wrong with his shoulder. He was out for the majority of the year toward the end of the season and playoffs. So you're looking at Gasol is back, Marcus Gasol, Michael Conley, all those guys, OJ Mayo, they all have playoff experience, have been in the belt, and they already have that under their belt. And against being arguably one of the teams that was supposed to go to the NBA Finals last year, the Thunder, and they beat the Spurs and then made a run at the Thunder and everything else. I mean, it was spectacular to watch, and I really like watching those guys. I think with their experience and them being in the same spot they are as they were last year, they're the underdog again, and they have their best player back, and that's huge, because you're basically saying if they went that far last year, then how come they can't go that far this year? And more if they had their best player with them, and then they have firepower like OJ Mayo coming off the bench. I think, and Zach Randolph's back too, so that's a big boost for them too. He wasn't, I believe he was out for a lot of the season, and he's back now, and that's huge. So that's going to be a big plus for them. And I see them winning this in 5. Really, I see Memphis coming out and just basically beating up on the Clippers. I think that the Clippers had a good run this year, and that, like what you said, they kind of flipped their franchise completely, which is what we expected when CP3 went there and everything else. But I see Memphis, they're so overall balanced, and really the Clippers have a couple of guys. I mean, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan, who are great, and a couple of other guys who are okay, but just the matchup-wise, Memphis has in just about every aspect except point guard, and I still feel like down low that Memphis is going to handle them easily.
Overall, I think when you look at the Clippers is that they probably have better overall superstars. But what I've seen, and Chris Paul played tremendous the other year against the Lakers series. He put the Hornets on his back. Blake Griffin has absolutely zero playoff experience. And what I saw last year was a Memphis team that was extremely deep, and this was without Rudy Gay. When you look at what Marcus Gasol did in the playoffs, probably the most underrated big man in the game right now. He had a tremendous playoffs. Zach Randolph, overall, through the first 2 series, by far in my mind last year, had the best overall playoffs last season. And when you add Rudy Gay back in there, who's probably the most underrated overall player in the game, he is a star, and for whatever reason, he does not get the credit as such. I think when you look at that, and you look at the fact that they are flying under the radar this year, the pressure is completely on the Clippers, because the Clippers have a lot of bandwagon fans now. They have the media on their side with the Lob City campaign and everything like that. I think that gives the Grizzlies a real good chance of flying under the radar, and I trust the Grizzlies. Like you said, if you look throughout that entire roster, pretty much everyone that is on that team was there last year and was there for a playoff run. They went through a lot of tough series last season, even upsetting the Spurs in the first round, and then giving a Thunder a very good run for their money. And I think that they could have beat the Mavericks had they gotten to that Western Conference Finals series. And I think if you look overall at that, and then you look at the Clippers roster, the experience. Chris Paul's been in the playoffs, and that's about it, because this would have been a great spot for Chauncey Billups to be in. He's not named Mr. Big Shot for he's named Mr. Big Shot for a reason, because he's been clutch throughout his career, because he's been on some of those Detroit Pistons teams that were so good through the early 2000s. And I think that without that leadership, I think that overall the Grizzlies are a better overall team, and that they will be able to take control of the series early on in Los Angeles, and from there finish off this series in 5 games. And I know that 5 games seems somewhat short, but I think that this is a quick series, and I think that besides the Thunder, I think that the Grizzlies are the second best team in the Western Conference, and that they could certainly beat the Thunder. I think if you look at what they did last year, there's no reason for me to believe, adding Rudy Gay in, that they could not defeat the Oklahoma City Thunder. There have certainly been improvements on the Thunder side as well from last season, but the Grizzlies have a huge improvement from what they had last year, adding Rudy Gay back into the mix.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. It was basically on a nice show, and almost completely what I said. I mean, I can't have said enough how great they played last year. They have it all under their belt. Everybody's back, and the depth they have is just going to blow away other teams. I mean, there's teams like OKC who they have stars like Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant and stuff like that. But when you look at this bench, it's just like you can almost put in the whole bench, and you're still going to have a decent lineup. You're not going to have a bunch of no names like OJ Mayo. These guys are good. They're good assets off the bench, and they can bring that spark. And like you said, with the Clippers not having Chauncey Billups, that's a great veteran who's always been in the limelight of everything. So he's not there to give his experience to the younger guys to help out. And really, Chris Paul is a guy with any playoff experience, and he himself hasn't been there quite a while. So it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a fun series. I really think that Memphis is just going to take control of the bat. They're overall better team, I think, and they're just going to get this in 5. I agree with you, Tim. But it's going to be a fun series because these are 2 fun teams.
And Coutinho Mobley has, I believe, some limited experience, but if you remember, he was on the Mavs last year, and he missed the entire second half of the season because I think he blew his knee out. So, not a ton of experience on the Clippers side. Sometimes that's a positive thing. Who knows? But overall, throughout this series, myself and KJ both have the Clippers in 5. Continue to check out these previews. Again, we will preview every single matchup in the first round. We will give you recaps of the best games throughout the first round. We'll be on live shows. We'll be hosting live shows. The whole 9 yards throughout this entire NBA playoffs. And then, as the NBA Finals get here, no one covered it better last year, and no one will cover it better this year. I can guarantee you that. YouTube.com/Mr. Kelstar for The Real Sports Talk. Like The Real Sports Talk on Facebook, and follow me on Twitter @CashKelly_TRST. We'll see you guys later.